Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we are diving into a topic that you, our listeners, brought to us.
Yes.
And it's a big one. It's all about the fleet rental system in Star Atlas.
Yeah.
And there's this huge debate happening over on the Star Atlas Discord server about, uh, well, bots,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're really a problem or not, and all the different ways that the community is suggesting
Right.
to try to fix the system or to change it up, because there's some people who feel like they're not able to get the rentals that they want.
Yeah, I think that's a really great summary. So for everyone listening, we were given a transcript of a really interesting Discord conversation, and the heart of the discussion is all around this idea that bots are impacting human players' ability to rent fleets. And there are some pretty strong feelings about this. So we're going to try to dig into that today.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just to jump right into it, like right off the bat, one of the biggest concerns that people are voicing is that they feel like they're getting outbid by bots constantly.
Yeah.
Like they're just not fast enough to click the button or to get the price in there, because the bots are just like instantly snapping up all the best deals.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
one user specifically mentioned wanting a chance to just outbid a bot, like at a reasonable price.
Right.
They want to actually be able to kind of assess the market themselves and figure out, okay, what is a good price for this particular rental?
Right. Right.
Um, and they're not even getting a chance to do that because it feels like the bots are just like dictating everything.
Yeah, and this really speaks to a point that one of the users, Body Tree, brought up in the conversation, which is like, is this just a microcosm of a larger problem where human players are always just reacting to the bots?
Hmm.
Not only in rentals, but in market trading as well. Like, we are at the mercy of the bots because they're setting these thresholds for interaction.
All right, yeah, like we're only getting the scraps that the bots don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a really interesting point. But the thing is that this isn't just like a complaint session. Like the community is actually coming up with a lot of creative solutions.
Right.
And one of the most common ones that we see is this idea of introducing auctions for fleet rentals.
Yeah. Auction.
Yeah, like so instead of it being this instant like rent it now situation,
Right.
it would be, okay, this fleet is up for auction for the next, whatever amount of time.
Right.
And then people could bid on it. And the idea is that it would create a more level playing field,
Yeah.
especially for new players or players who aren't able to like constantly monitor the market,
Mm-hmm.
because then it wouldn't just be about who's the fastest. It would be about, who's willing to pay the fair market value.
Yeah, and that brings up this question of like who decides what that fair market value is, and would auctions actually achieve that? Like, would they really get rentals going for what they're actually worth?
Right. Right.
Mm.
Right. And I mean, some people in the Discord are even suggesting like a hybrid approach where you would still have the option to rent it now if you wanted to.
Yeah, like an immediate purchase.
Right. But you would also have the option to put it up for auction.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the big question is, well, what about the bots? Will they just participate in the auctions too?
Right. Right. I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose if they just jump into the auctions and dominate those as well.
Right. And there's definitely a debate going on about whether or not bots would actually have an advantage in an auction setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people are saying, well, if human players are really willing to pay what the market dictates, then they should be able to outbid the bots.
Yeah.
But then other people are saying, yeah, but bots can still snipe bids at the last second.
Right. Right. Exactly. And it brings us to thinking about how those auctions would actually be structured. Like, are we talking about just traditional, like you can put in any bid at any time, or
Yep.
do we need to think about minimum bid increments so people can't just outbid each other by like a fraction of a cent?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And then there's also this idea of like reverse Dutch auctions.
Oh, yeah, where the price starts high and gradually goes down.
Yeah. So the price would actually like decrease over time
Right.
until someone said, okay, I'll take it at this price.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting because it puts pressure on the sellers to offer a competitive price before the value drops too low.
Yeah, and some people think that that kind of auction format would really benefit the buyers because it really incentivizes the sellers to get those prices down quickly.
Right.
But there are other people who are saying, that might not actually be the best for buyers because they might end up missing out if they wait too long.
Yeah. It's like a game of chicken almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's also the question of, how long should these auctions run for?
Mm-hmm.
Some people are saying, keep them short, like less than a day,
Mm.
maybe even just a few hours, to keep things moving quickly. But then other people are saying, well, even that might be too long.
Yeah, yeah, especially for new players.
Yeah, like if you're a new player and you need a fleet right now,
Yeah.
you're not going to want to wait a whole day for an auction to finish.
Exactly.
So, there's definitely a lot of different opinions on that.
Right. And then there are some more complex ideas that are being thrown around, like to specifically counter that bot sniping issue that we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
where the bots can just jump in at the last second. What about a very short sealed bid auction? So say 5 minutes, everyone puts their bid in, but you can't see anyone else's bid.
Oh, interesting.
And then at the end of the 5 minutes, the highest bidder wins.
Mhm.
That way you have to really assess like what you think the rental is worth without being influenced by other people's bids. And you're not just trying to react in real time.
Right, but wouldn't that just turn it into like a fastest finger first to get your bid in within those 5 minutes?
That's a good point. Yeah, some people are saying that that might not actually solve the problem. It might just be a slightly different version of the same issue.
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely tricky. But then there are also some solutions being proposed that don't involve auctions at all.
Right.
Um, like one idea is to have a rental price suggestion system.
Oh, yeah, like kind of like we see in the Galactic Marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like if you're trying to rent a fleet for a price that's way below or way above what similar fleets are going for,
Right.
you would get a warning like, are you sure you want to do this?
Like this is significantly outside the market rate.
Yeah, exactly. And then another idea is to set a minimum rental price based on the VWAP, so the volume weighted average price.
Yeah, and the idea there is to try to prevent people from, extremely undercutting in private deals.
Right.
And it wouldn't completely stop it, but it would at least, provide a bit of a floor.
Yeah, yeah. And then private listings and rentals are another option that people are talking about.
Yeah, like taking it out of the public marketplace altogether.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that if you could rent directly to another player,
Right.
then you wouldn't have to worry about bots at all.
Yeah, and that could even lead to some really interesting arrangements like DI fleets.
DI seats.
Yeah, like a decentralized autonomous corporation
Okay.
could have its own internal fleet rental system.
Interesting.
Or you could even have faction-oriented investing in fleets specifically for rental.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the players who aren't part of a DI or a faction?
Right, right. And that's the argument against private rentals, that if everything moves to private, then the average player who's just looking for a rental on the open market,
Right.
they might not be able to find anything.
Yeah, there wouldn't be as much inventory available.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also a suggestion to allow rentals to be made directly to specific wallet addresses.
Oh, interesting.
So like if you know someone who wants to rent your fleet, you could just send it directly to their wallet.
Yeah, that's even more control for the renter.
Right. And then there's this really cool idea that I saw, which is the burn to increment rate feature.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about this one.
So the idea is that, let's say a fleet is already rented out, but you think the price is too low. So you could actually burn some ATLA's tokens to slightly increase the rental rate.
Oh, so you're essentially like outbidding the current renter, but it's costing you something to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about speed anymore.
Right.
It's about, how much are you willing to pay to get this fleet?
Yeah, yeah. It makes it a little bit more strategic than just being the fastest.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are some limitations to this. So you would only be able to do it while the fleet's actually being rented.
Right.
And there would be a cap on how much you could increase the rate. Maybe like double the current rate or something.
Right. That makes sense.
And then there's just a ton of other ideas being thrown around as well.
Yeah, like what else are we seeing?
Well, one is just to increase the overall supply of rentals.
Oh, yeah. Just more fleets available to rent.
Yeah, exactly. Which would directly bring prices down.
Right. Simple supply and demand.
Right. Another idea is to give the last bidder a short window of time to accept a rental before it goes back on the market.
Oh, interesting.
So like if you're the last person to bid on a fleet,
Right.
you would have like 5 minutes or something to say, yes, I'll take it
Okay.
before it goes back up for grabs.
I like that.
And then there's this idea of offering bonus rewards from the DAO to people who rent out fleets that are specifically suited for new players.
Oh, yeah, like entry-level stuff.
Yeah. So like mining setups or scanning setups.
Yeah, that would be a good way to incentivize people to make rentals available for new players.
Right. And then there's this other idea, which is a little bit more controversial, which is to always rent fleets without any crew included.
Oh, so the renter would have to supply their own crew.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is that it would add another layer of friction for bots.
Right, because they would have to acquire crew separately.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this one got a pretty negative reaction for most people.
Yeah, I can see why. It just seems like it would make things more complicated.
Right. And then there are some suggestions to implement a minimum fee for rentals,
Okay.
which would discourage people from bypassing fees in private deals.
Right, right.
And it could also make it less appealing for bots to do like tiny rapid transactions.
Yeah, it would make it more expensive for them.
Right. And then there's also this idea of having warnings for rental listings that are priced way below market value, like just to flag potential manipulation or errors.
Right, right. So a lot of different ideas being thrown around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But stepping back from all the solutions for a second,
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge the frustration that's driving all of this.
Yeah, like what are the core concerns that are fueling this debate?
Well, I mean, a lot of players are just feeling helpless. Like they feel like they can't compete with the speed and efficiency of the bots.
Yeah. It's like trying to buy concert tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Like you blink and they're gone.
And not gone.
And you know, there's this feeling that basic game mechanics shouldn't require you to use external scripts or to be like constantly monitoring the market.
Right, right. It shouldn't be a second job.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
But then there's also this other viewpoint that's being expressed, which is that the difference between a highly sophisticated bot and a really fast human player might not be that big.
Yeah, like, is it really about the bots themselves, or is it just about the fact that some people are really good at playing the market?
Right, right. And some people are saying, you know, rental fleets are available. You just have to be willing to pay a premium price.
Yeah, so it's not about access, it's about affordability.
Right. And then there's also a more pragmatic viewpoint, which is just like, you know, stop complaining about bots and just focus on building your own wealth and
Yeah.
like get good.
Yeah, yeah, basically. But then there's this concern that if the rental system becomes too complex,
Mm-hmm.
it might actually be less appealing to new players. Yeah, like simplicity is important.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the big question of, you know, do bots even exist in the fleet rental market right now?
Yeah. Are we just imagining this? Is this a boogeyman?
Right. Like, it's really hard to prove definitively whether or not they're there.
Yeah.
But then even the people who aren't convinced that they're a problem right now are saying, well, they're probably going to be a problem in the future.
Right, because the potential profits are just so high.
Yeah, yeah. And this is kind of similar to what happened with the Galactic Marketplace.
Right. In the early days, there were similar concerns about bots.
Yeah, exactly. And we're also seeing this difference in perspective between players who already have a lot of assets in the game.
Yeah, the established players.
Yeah, and potential new players.
Right.
Because the established players are like, well, you know, I don't have any trouble getting rentals.
Yeah, it's working for me.
Yeah, but the new players are saying, well, I can't even get started because I can't afford to rent a fleet.
Right. Right. It's a barrier to entry.
Yeah. And someone made a really good point, which is that, you know, we're all focused on these like super profitable fleets.
Yeah, the meta.
Yeah. But the problem is that there's just not enough liquidity in general.
Yeah, even for basic fleets.
Yeah. Like people are having trouble finding any fleets to rent at all.
Right. So it's not just about the high-end stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then looking at more long-term solutions.
Yeah.
Some people are suggesting that maybe we need to make bonding tools publicly available.
Like open source them.
Yeah. Kind of like what they did with Sage.
Right.
So that everyone has access to the same tools.
Interesting.
Or even adjusting the underlying smart contract of the rental system itself.
Yeah, that would be a big change.
Yeah, but it might be necessary.
Yeah, potentially.
And then there was this kind of sobering point that someone made, which is that, you know, look at Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Like even a huge company like that with all their resources can't get rid of bots.
Right.
So it's like maybe this is just an unsolvable problem.
Yeah, it's a really tough challenge.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
But it's clear that the community is really engaged in trying to find a solution.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about this conversation is it's not just about bots. It's about, you know, what kind of game do we want to have?
Right.
What kind of economy do we want to create?
Yeah, yeah. And how do we balance the needs of the established players with the needs of the new players?
Right.
And, you know, how do we make sure that the game is fun and accessible for everyone?
Exactly.
So it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, a lot of complexities.
Yeah. So this leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener. As you consider all of these different ideas that we've discussed today, what do you think are the most important principles that should guide the decisions about the fleet rental system?
Yeah.
Is it about preventing bots? Is it about accessibility for new players? Is it about maximizing market efficiency?
Right.
Like, how do we balance all of these sometimes conflicting goals?
Mm.
So let us know what you think. And thanks for taking this deep dive with us.